Hi, Bio30. Today I'm going to talk about two topics under the heading of multiple alleles. So the first one is going to be levels of dominance, and in your textbook they use an example of rabbits on page 304. So you can actually go look at that picture and see the different coat colors of rabbits, and that's the first thing I'm going to do a few Punnett squares on. Then we're going to talk about epistasis, and that's one measly paragraph in your textbook on page 305. So I'm going to cover that a little bit more thoroughly than the textbook does. We'll look at how the epistatic gene affects the coat color in labs, and then we will also do some Punnett squares on that. We're actually going to do some dihybrid crosses. We'll have to do that to try to understand that a little bit better. So I'm going to go to my PowerPoint here. I hope this works. Okay, so this is right from your textbook. It talks about how in rabbits, 4 different alleles can code for coat color. And there's different levels of dominance. So up to now, we've mostly been talking about something is dominant, something is recessive. Well, we have talked about codominance, and we have talked about it, a few different patterns. But in this pattern here, we have different levels of dominance. So instead of there just being a dominant and a recessive, we have varying levels. So we're going to use a big C for the overall dominant one, and that's going to work. We use C because they're talking about full color being black. We could use a B, but we're going to use a C since your textbook does as well. So if you have the big C, it's going to be dominant over this one, chinchilla. And if you look at the chinchilla in your textbook, you can see it's kind of brownish. Okay, so that chinchilla is recessive to the black, but it's dominant to 2 other coat colors. So a chinchilla will dominate the Himalayan, and if you look at the picture of the Himalayan rabbit, it's kind of white with different points of color on it, and that one is recessive to the chinchilla and of course the black, but it does dominate over the white or the albino. And the white or the albino is always going to be recessive to everything. So I'm going to do a few of these Punnett squares in a minute on Jamboard so that you can kind of get an idea of how that would work. But first of all, I'm going to talk about epistasis a little bit more in a little bit more detail, and then we'll do some problems on that too. So you've probably already read this, at least I hope so, but epistasis is the interaction between 2, and it can even be more genes, to control a single phenotype. So epistasis takes place when the action of one gene is modified by one or several other genes, which are sometimes called modifier genes. The gene whose phenotype is expressed is said to be epistatic. So in terms of examples, the example that you'll most likely see, this happens in some vegetables as well, but this is a much cuter example here. So think about chocolate labs and black labs and yellow labs. They're all labs. And you might have noticed if you've ever had a lab that sometimes they can have puppies that are different colors, right? So how the genetics works in labs is there's a base coat color. So we've got a black lab, and that will be dominant over a chocolate lab. So we're going to use a big B. So this is just straight on Mendelian genetics here. So of course, a black lab could be either homozygous dominant or it could be heterozygous. But if it's heterozygous, we say it's a carrying the chocolate gene. So it's a carrier for a chocolate or a brown lab. Now, in order to get a brown lab, you can't have any black genes, right? You have to be homozygous recessive. But yellow is produced by the presence of a recessive epistatic gene, which has the effect of masking the black or the chocolate genes. So in this case, if you remember, this is a recessive epistatic gene in this example. So two biggies, you're not going to have any yellow labs at all, and they're not carrying yellow. Now this one here, you're going to get whatever color the bees say, but you're carrying yellow, but it's going to appear either black or chocolate. And then with the two little e's, you're going to get a yellow lab. So I wrote a few different genotypes on here. So we're looking at two different traits, so which is why I said we're going to have to do a dihybrid cross on this. So this, you can look at this and you can see, okay, it's got a big B and a little b. So I know it's a black lab and it's carrying chocolate. Now we look at the epistatic gene, and remember that has to be homozygous recessive in order to show the yellow. So this isn't going to be a yellow dog at all because it's got at least one dominant E here, but it is carrying yellow. So with the right partner, I guess this dog could have both chocolate and yellow puppies, although it's a black dog. Okay, now this one here, this is a pure black lab, and it's not carrying chocolate at all. And you can see it's also not carrying any yellow. So this one has nothing but black alleles to pass along here. Now this one here, this is going to be a chocolate lab, or it would have been, except this epistatic gene is going to come into play here now because we can see that we've got a homozygous recessive set of the epistatic gene. So now we are actually going to get a yellow dog instead of a chocolate dog because this is going to affect, or it's going to mask, I guess, those alleles. So we're going to have a yellow lab here. But it's going to carry chocolate, so it could perhaps have chocolate lab puppies. So this one here, this is, again, we can see that this would be a chocolate lab. And in this case, though, we don't have two recessive alleles, so we are going to have a chocolate lab, but we would say it's carrying yellow, depending on what it mates with, then it could perhaps have yellow puppies. So just to kind of sum it up, here's all the different genotypes that are possible. So we've got big E, big E, big B, big B. Well, I did it the other way before, but it doesn't really matter which way. I think the other way would maybe be preferable because it's best to put them in alphabetical order, but it doesn't really matter. So this case, we've got a basic black. It's not going to be anything but black, and it's not carrying anything but black. Now here we have a black that is carrying the chocolate allele, but it's not carrying any yellow at all. Now here we have a black that is carrying yellow, but not carrying chocolate. And here we have a black lab that is carrying yellow. You can see it's carrying yellow, and it's also carrying chocolate. Now here, this is going to be a yellow lab. It would have been a black lab if this epistatic gene wasn't masking the black. So in this instance, we're going to have a yellow lab that is carrying black, not carrying chocolate. Here we have a yellow lab because of the little E's, that is carrying both black and chocolate. And here we're going to have a chocolate lab that's not carrying anything else. It's not carrying any yellow. And here we have a chocolate lab that does carry yellow. You can see that by the little E there. So we're going to do this practice, but I'm going to do it on a Jamboard for you. So I'm going to escape out of here, and I'm going to go to the Jamboards. And the first thing we'll do is we'll go back to the rabbits, and then we'll think about those puppies again. I may be doing this a little bit out of order, but kind of because I wanted to go to back, and I didn't want to go back and forth to the Jamboard. So I've got 4 situations here. I'm going to do these 4 as a demonstration, and then probably tomorrow I'll erase these and put in some other situations, and we'll do them together, or you'll do them. You'll try it. So just watch for now. You can get on this Jamboard if you want right now, but you don't have to, because I'm just going to do them as a demonstration on this video. Okay, so get myself a pen because I write so well with my mouse, right? And I'm going to do this first problem. Cross an albino rabbit. So I know if it's an albino rabbit, it's 2 recessive alleles, right? With a full color rabbit. So that's going to be a black rabbit. So that's 2 big C's. Now you guys know enough about Punnett squares to know here now that I'm going to have 100% black rabbits here, and they're all going to carry albino, right? So 100% black rabbits if I do that. So that's just straight on Mendelian there. Okay, so let's try a harder one. Cross a chinchilla rabbit. Okay, so it's a chinchilla rabbit, and it doesn't say it carries anything else. So I'm going to put in the chinchilla on both alleles here, with a black rabbit that carries albino. So it's going to be big C because it's a black rabbit, and a little c because it carries albino. Okay, so now what am I going to get? Here, I'm going to get big C from this parent, and I'm going to get a chinchilla, but black dominates chinchilla. So I am going to have a black rabbit that carries chinchilla. And this is not going to be any different on this situation here. This is going to be a black rabbit that carries chinchilla. Down here, I have a chinchilla with an albino. So in this case, the chinchilla is going to dominate the albino, and we're going to have chinchilla rabbits. And this is not going to be any different here. So here, I'm going to get a 1-to-1 ratio between black rabbits and chinchilla rabbits. 50-50, 1-to-1, 50%, 50%, however you want to say that, whatever the question asks you for. And then this one is cross a Himalayan rabbit that carries albino. So Himalayan rabbit that carries albino with a chinchilla that carries Himalayan. So now we've got a chinchilla that carries Himalayan. So now what am I going to get? I'm going to get C with a chinchilla and C with a Himalaya. Sorry, this is getting hard with the mouse. Okay, so here, chinchilla is dominant over Himalaya. So I'm going to get a chinchilla rabbit that carries Himalayan here. Down here, I'm getting a Himalayan from that parent and a Himalayan from that parent. So I'm just going to have a Himalayan colored rabbit. Now here, I've got my CH, whoops, and I've got an albino allele here. So I'm going to have a chinchilla rabbit that carries albino. And now here, I'm going to get a C with an H on it and a C, an albino. These are getting worse and worse. And of course, I'm going to get a Himalayan. So here, what am I going to get? I'm going to get a chinchilla, and I'm going to get a Himalayan and a Himalayan. So I've got a 1-to-1 ratio there. Okay, one more of these rabbit problems. Can always come back and look at it. I did put a link to this in the Google Classroom, so you can come and erase these if you want and try them again. We'll do some more probably tomorrow. So this one says cross a black rabbit that carries chinchilla with a Himalayan that carries albino. So here we have a black, and that's going to be dominant, right? But it's going to carry Himalayan. And here we've got a black that's going to carry the albino. So we're going to have a black rabbit that carries albino. Now here we're going to have a chinchilla that carries Himalayan. And here we're going to have a chinchilla that carries albino. So what do we got? We got ourselves 2 black rabbits and we got ourselves 2 chinchillas. So we've got a 1-to-1 ratio there. Okay, so like I said, feel free to come in and erase this and practice these examples a little bit more, and we'll do a few more tomorrow. But hopefully you get the idea from this. So now I'm going to go back to the Labradors. Give me one sec here. So the epistatic gene. So I made more dogs than you actually need. So you can do a little bit of practice here. I'll do them with you right now as a demonstration, and then we'll mix them up and you can come back and try some practice. Okay, so this one here, I've got EEBB. So you know it's a basic black dog and it's not carrying anything here. So because it's got no little e's. So this is a basic black. So you don't have to do anything else for this one. Just find a basic black puppy and put it in. Now this one, it's got 2 big E's and 2 little B's. So you know it's a chocolate lab, and you know it's not carrying anything else. So there's a chocolate lab. I'll drag him in. Now this one here has 2 big B's, so that would be a black lab, except it's got 2 recessive epistatics here. So we know that's a yellow lab. Now here's where you have to do something else. It says, what color does it carry? So now we would have to get a sticky note and put in the fact that it carries black. There. Carries black, meaning it can pass black along to its puppies, right? Okay, now this one here, we can see it's a black lab, heterozygous, and we can see it's not got any, it doesn't have the recessive alleles, so it's just going to be a black lab. There's lots of black labs, so we'll pick that one. And It's carrying chocolate, so we need to get a little sticky note and say that it's carrying chocolate. Okay. This one here, we can see because it's got a big B and a little b that it's going to be a black lab, and it has at least one big E, so it's definitely going to be a black lab. Not going to be yellow, but it is carrying yellow and it is carrying chocolate. So let's put that on a sticky note. I didn't spell chocolate right, and I know that. Okay. Now this one here, we can see it's got two recessive B's. So it is going to be a chocolate lab, and it's got at least one big E. So it's not going to be yellow, but it is going to carry yellow. So let's find ourselves a chocolate lab. And we'll write down that it carries yellow. Okay, now this one, it's got a big B and a little b, so you might be tempted to put in a black lab, but look, it's got two recessive alleles here for E, so it's actually going to be a yellow lab, and it's going to carry both black and chocolate. So let's put that in. One more. So I got 3 dogs to choose from. Which one will it be? If you said the black lab, you're right, because it's got 2 big B's and it doesn't have 2 little E's. So it is carrying yellow, but it's not going to be yellow. So let's put in that it carries yellow. There. Okay, good. Hopefully you understand what I'm doing here. So now I'm going to mix these dogs all up, and I'm going to take away the sticky notes, or maybe I'll just put them to the side, and then you can see how you do. Just try it again, and we'll do a few more tomorrow too. And then there's one last thing that I want to do with you, and that is, well, I got 3 problems here, but I think probably if we did one of them right now and we can do a couple more later, that'll be good enough. So I'll just choose this one here. So it says cross a yellow lab which carries yellow with a black lab that carries chocolate. Okay, so I'm going to get my pen. Remember, the first thing you always do is write out your cross. I've been pretty inconsistent in putting B's and E's, which one I put first, but I'm going to put the B's first just because they're first alphabetically, and that's the way you actually should do it, in my opinion. So I'm going to cross a chocolate lab. So there's my chocolate lab, and it carries yellow. So it's not a yellow lab. So we know that it's heterozygous for the epistatic gene. And I'm going to cross that with a black lab that carries chocolate. Okay, so it's a black lab, so I know that it's got one big bee, but it carries chocolate. So it's got a little bee. So it's heterozygous. And then it doesn't mention that it carries yellow. So that tells me it's got the dominant alleles for E. Okay, so now it's not going to be any different than doing a dihybrid cross, right? We're going to see what kind of puppies we could expect to get from this cross here. So we're going to sort these out. So it's, in this case, I've got a small b with a big E and a small b with a little e. And you probably have done enough dihybrid crosses to know that we don't need to do the next two because they're going to be exactly the same, right? So I'm not going to bother with those. I'm going to get a different color here, and I'm going to do these guys. So I've got a big B with a big E, and I've got a big B with a big E. I don't need to do that twice. It's going to be the same, right? So I'll just skip down here, and I've got a little b with a big E. And again, I don't need to do that twice. It's the same thing. Okay, so now we can do our cross and see what kind of puppies we're going to get. So this one here is getting a big B from that parent, a little b from that parent, and two dominant E's. So we can see that that's going to be a black lab carrying chocolate, no yellow genes. Okay, but here we're getting two recessive alleles, two little b's, and then two big E's. And that's going to be a straight on chocolate lab.
Woohoo, chocolate lab.
And this one here, we've got a big B and a little b. So we've got a black lab carrying chocolate, and we've got a big E and a little e. So we have a black lab that carries both chocolate and yellow, but it'll be a black lab. Now here, we've got a similar situation. We've got a chocolate lab, and we've got a big E and a little e. So it isn't going to be yellow, but it will carry yellow. So from this cross, we could expect to get half of the puppies will be chocolate and half of the puppies will be black. Half will be black and half will be chocolate. We've got a 50-50 split. There's a little bit of difference in what they're carrying, but not too much. So we did that problem, and we'll do a couple more problems tomorrow, or you can try them yourself on your own right now if you feel confident with this. And I think I'm going to end it here, and I will see you tomorrow. I hope that worked.